Hello, Felipe.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good. Very excited for the weekend.
Cool. So, I really like to share your story and about like why you think about like it's important to learn more about the history, culture of African American things, and also the stuff within the map.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to it, but if I take first like a personal point of it, it just gave so much more meaning to what we do, and it gives like a bigger depth of the experience that you can have, right? I think we all hear and we, grow as dancers hearing about like Lindy Hop being a happy dance and all that stuff, which is true, of course. I mean, frankly, wouldn't say it wasn't true, but it's not necessarily the full story, right? I think what it was beautiful for me was to understand that it's a dance that welcomes every sort of feeling and expression, so you can really research yourself in it, right? In whatever moment you are in your life. So you don't have to be happy to come dance, right? You just use the culture and the dance as a way to get to know yourself better, get to know your community better, connect to your people, around this dance form, which is so big. So in a personal level, that has been the main benefit of kind of investigating a bit more the meaning of the dance. I feel that I love the dance much more, and I feel that I can get much more out of it. And at the same time, I feel that I can give more of myself to the dance. So yeah, it's very.
So you have a kind of the specific experience because you have you're Brazilian, so you have your own culture. You find something different between like Brazilian culture.
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of parallels, right, between Brazilian history and United States history, right? It was all kind of the same. Slavery is what built the countries, right? Both, right? And and samba, right? Brazilian national music, basically. One of them. There's loads. Was born at the same time as jazz, and by the same structure, by the same group of people, with the same prohibition on the music at first, and then it became popular. It's the exact same story running parallel. So once I dig a little deeper into jazz culture, I saw, oh fuck, but this is actually the history of my culture, or Brazilian culture, right? So then I was able to dig deep into my own culture and my relationship to it, right? I'm a white Brazilian, so of course samba is African Brazilian culture, it's not a white. So that's not even my culture as well, but it's part of my vocabulary of music and sounds and dance. And I had a lot of exposure to it in Brazil. There's dancing very accessible to everywhere, right?
So maybe that can be one reason you really try to dig in more African American history.
Exactly.
So you feel like
for sure. Like I feel that I grew much more knowledge about the background of my history, right? The background of my country as well, and the identity of my people. So there's a lot of parallels, which I really like, and especially now that I'm digging more into the Latin influence of jazz, which is a lot, right? So I found these numbers. I'm just gonna say some numbers, and it's all approximate. They're like by the 40s, around 70 or more percent of the people in Harlem, they were from Caribbean descent.
Oh.
So if 70% of the musicians had some sort of heritage from enslaved people that came from the Caribbean, so all the rhythms and riffs are connected. So once you open that box, you cannot not hear the Latin influence, which is the same influence that samba has and a lot of Brazilian music has. So I feel this deeper connection to the rhythms, deeper connection to what it means to be dancing to this.
I think you really have a like unique like background, and then you now see all the similarity,
overlap,
like African American, also like African Brazilians.
Yeah, but I find it really interesting as well too when you talk to people that don't have that same overlap.
Yeah.
Right, and like how is it still possible? And I think I have found really interesting to have those culture talks in events in different countries and different approaches and perspectives. And when you get to, because when you see Lindy Hop as a culture, not just as a hobby dance that you can do, which is fine if that's what it is, right? But if you try to understand it as more of a bigger picture to it, you start questioning, okay, what is my culture? Because I feel like if you live in your country, in your own country, because I don't live in mine, right? But if you live in yours, like you don't recognize your culture because you live in it. So I feel that once you get this contact with other culture, you start kind of thinking, what is my culture? Like, what is the difference? What is the similarities? What is it that I can grow culturally and as a person by learning from this culture that can enrich my experience into my own culture? So it doesn't matter if there's an overlap or not, but even the differences can be very enriching.
Now that in Korea it has a little like similar story, like how hip hop influenced the Korean music, and now it's a kind of the K-pop is another like type of the music.
So interesting.
So I feel like Korean people, many of the Korean dancers, is not really has a chance to learn or like, I mean, reach all those resources. But I think the Korean dancer is really like eager to learn more. But the one thing is a little like tricky is that because not many resources written in Korean, and so for us it's really hard to get there. So even like some experienced dancer who not really speak English, or it's really hard if they know the language or translating something, but it's really difficult. Yeah. So what's your advice like who has what can be the like first thing maybe they can do?
I mean, I think like there must be some resource. I think like whatever beginning, it's a beginning. I think like whatever resource that you can get your hands on, you start to learn the names in the context or periods or a movement within jazz. And I think you start like noting it down. This is what I did, right? When I started to really go deeper into the history and deeper in my own ways, right? I'm not a historian in any ways. I don't think I know a lot. But when I did spend some time researching, you start like seeing the same names kind of popping up, or like start seeing some context or some happenings or some events, and you kind of go maybe deeper into that one name at one point, or deeper, or you ask your teachers or people around you about something specific, right? And then if you hear the reference in a class, reach out to the teacher and say, "Can you tell me a bit more about it?" Right? I feel that one of the main things that I have learned from CVFC, right, the Collective Voices for Change, right, the organization that I'm part of, I'm very lucky to be part of. I think it's a privilege. It has been to not shy away from asking people about information. You know, if you have access to elders in any moment, like, reach out, like ask questions and show interest. More often than not, they are willing to share and they're happy to share. I think it's worse to not ask and to ignore and just not reach out. And I think whoever is accessible, I think just ask questions and show interest. And I think it's trickier, like you said, for Koreans, if there's not a lot of resources in Korean, then it's hard to do the resource on your own, right? So I guess, getting together, try to see if you can get a group together to translate some resource to it. I think it can be a study thing that you bond over that, and I think it's an important thing.
Frankie's group, and I think all those things.
Exactly. There is some people in Busan, I think, translating some webinars from CDFC. I think stuff like this, I think it's important. But I think like trying to find people's history, like, or people's experience rather than only written resource, like academic resource, which are also important. But it's important to have this oral tradition being passed, right? So reaching out to elders or someone who had access to elders and maybe have a story that they could share from the elders, and kind of having this oral tradition that is so part of the culture. So I think that could be a good.
So you have experienced like the dance in US, Brazil, Europe, and Korea, and all many Asian countries.
Yeah.
Why do you see some differences between like, especially like Korea?
I mean, I just came back from Busan, right, from the weekend, and this weekend especially, I think I've always loved dancing in Korea. I think like social dancing in Korea is one of the one of my most fun places for me to dance. I really enjoy it, and I never really put the finger on it. I always say, oh yeah, they're great dancers, right? Oh, they train a lot, or they're very. But I don't think it's that. You know, I think in Busan, I felt there was this. I don't know. There's so much commitment to it. You know, I feel that it means so much. I feel for at least the people at the festival that were there, like to be doing it. You know, I feel that there is like that I can get more out of a Korean dancer. Like I get more of an experience than I get most of the times in Europe, for example. And I think it's how much you're willing to put in the dance. You know,
really have commitment there.
Exactly. There is like, you know, they really commit to that dance. You know, it's not a man, just do it. You know.
Yeah. Especially for that kind of the weekend event, I think the people. Someone who really put all their time and money in there for that show.
For sure. Which I think I feel very similarly in Latin America. Right? In Latin America, and I recommend if you can go to ILHC Latin America, that's the best event I've been in my life, I think. And I think it's, again, the commitment, like what it means for them to be dancing, what it means for them to be in ILHC is so big. And the one thing that I think ILHC did so well in Latin America was to honor the local culture. So they would play music from all the countries that were present.
Wow.
And then when the music would play, everybody would just follow how they should be danced. So like the people from the country would start like doing and everybody would like join the part. And I think that was such a beautiful way to kind of set up the weekend, because it wasn't the first party, right? To set up the weekend like that. Look, we're celebrating our dance in it, and then when they went to the jazz parties, there was this meaning extra that was there, like celebrating each other and like what it means. And I think Korea is so kind of close to this, or like to this same feeling that I had there, because there is so much that Koreans already put into it. And I think Europe is great. Look, I'm not trying to say that Europe is shit. It's not like I mean, it's where I live, it's where I work, and I think I have my contribution to the scene as well. So if it's bad, it's because of me as well, in a way. But it's not. I think it's just there's more of like this relaxed feeling, which I really like from Europe. Right, like you just go and you can relax in an event and have like a chill dance, and like it's more of like a connecting with people. There's less urgency. That's the
Thank you, Felipe, for your experience and your thought, and I think it will be very beneficial for all people in Korea and Asia.
I appreciate it too. Thanks for asking me.
Thank you.